Hey everybody, I wanted to do a video on the audio editing workflow in Pro Tools, Cubase, Logic, and Studio One, so you can see some of the unique features in each DAW and also compare them. We're going to start here with Pro Tools. This is Pro Tools 11 HD. I have a guitar recording here along with some drum samples. Now let me begin by saying I really like how Pro Tools handles and shows audio clips. One of the great features is you get amazing resolution of the waveform. In other DAWs, you'll notice at this zoom level, it becomes quite pixelated and blocky, but Pro Tools keeps it very smooth. Additionally, if you're laying out drums like this, just on the grid, Pro Tools is great for that. You can change the grid setting right here, and you'll see that the grid lines actually change as you change the setting. Once you have it in grid mode, which is your snap, you can basically just drop samples right onto the grid to form your beat. Now, one thing you'll notice is as I move this sample, the waveform actually isn't moving as I drag this around. That's one of my biggest pet peeves with Pro Tools, because if you're trying to line something up, it'd be very handy to have the waveform show so you know exactly where it's going to land. Instead, what you're going to have to do is use nudge. So for example, you can set it to samples, a small sample value, and then if you use nudge forward and backward, you can actually see the sample moving. So let's take a quick listen to this initial beat that I have. Now, one of the great features of Pro Tools is this edit cursor. It allows you to easily duplicate large sections of songs. For example, say I have this hi-hat sample. I could put it on every other beat, but that would take a long time. Instead, what I can do is highlight 2 beats, hit Command D, highlight those again, Command D, and then quickly go across the entire beat. Now, if I just do this, it'll be quite mechanical in terms of the sound. So one thing Pro Tools offers for audio is Beat Detective. Go to Event, Beat Detective, and it'll bring up this dialog. Now, Clip Conform allows you the ability to take audio samples that you've placed directly on the grid and shift them slightly. You can use Groove, which gives you access to various grooves, MPC style, Logic style, or you can use Standard and swing it. So this is set to an 1/8 note swing, just a little bit, and watch what happens to these hi-hat samples. They shifted. So this is a great way to add some feel to beats that you've placed directly on the grid. So now once I have that, I can select all of this, Command D across the entire guitar track, and that's the beat. Now, say I've done this and I come back later and realize, oh, I don't like this drum sample for the kick. I wouldn't want to replace all of these one by one with a new sample, and you don't have to. Pro Tools allows you to replace every clip and the copy of it throughout the session, and even across multiple tracks. So I have another kick here in the clips, kick 10, and so I can just highlight the region I want to replace, and I can right click on this and hit replace clip, or I can drag this file directly onto this holding Command and Shift, and what that'll do is it'll bring up this replace clip dialog and allows me to only replace the original clip, all instances of the original clip, and then on this track or all tracks. And so if I do that, now you can see I actually have the new clip placed perfectly where the previous drum sample was for the kick. All right. So now the other thing Pro Tools offers is the ability to put effects directly on a single sample. So I can click this clap and go up to Audio Suite. Now Audio Suite has various plugins, both from Avid and third-party plugins that you can use. So for example, if I wanted to put an echo just on this clap, I could do so and render it. If I wanted to pitch shift this, I could as well. What I'll do is reverse. And now you have a reverse sample that you can move around. Now, as I discussed before, if this was something like a swell, you want to make sure it lands right on the beat, but it's hard if you can't see where the waveform is. So instead, Pro Tools gives you the ability to set a sync point. Go to Clip, identify sync point. And now that sync point is where your edit cursor is. And what this will do is allow you to snap that clip using that sync point. That becomes the snap point for the clip. So let me undo that a little bit. Go back to our original clip. All right. One of the great features of Pro Tools is the ability to quickly trim, fade, and clean up audio. So for example, I have this guitar part. I can say, I want to remove everything from the beginning of the clip until this cursor. All I have to do is hit A, and it does it. And if I want to fade in this up till this cursor, all I have to do is hit D, and you can see that. And the same thing I can do at the end. I'll say, I want to actually trim it over here, hit S, click here, hit G. Super easy. The nice thing also that Pro Tools has for audio is tap to transient. So what you can do is click on an audio file, ensure tap to transient is on, and then when you hit the tab key, it goes directly to the transient. Now, you can use the B key to separate it at transients. Just hit tab and B and it'll split it up. Or, even easier, select the clip, go to Edit, separate clip at transients, and it'll separate the clip at all the transients. Very handy for drums. All right, so this guitar is played pretty well and on the beat, but say it wasn't, and I needed to tweak it a little. You can use Elastic Audio. Come over here, you change the time to using ticks, and then you choose your Elastic Audio algorithm from various, and then Xform is another one that you can buy that's of a higher quality. So I'll choose polyphonic since it's a guitar. And if I come here and say warp, and let me zoom in this clip a little bit, and then choose warp, you can see these are all of the analysis of the warp points that Pro Tools has done. And by zooming in, you can add warp markers by just double clicking. If you hold down Shift and click, it'll create 3. So it'll create 1 in the middle and then 2 on each side, so you don't have to change the other markers as you move something around. Double clicking removes the markers. And the nice thing about doing this right on the arrange page is, say I had to line this up with another part, say a doubled guitar, or I wanted to align it to certain hits of the beat, having everything right on the arrange page so you can line up the warp markers makes that super easy. All right, the last feature I want to show is actually my favorite feature in Pro Tools. It's called clip gain. Now, a lot of DAWs allow you to take a clip and trim the gain up and down for the clip. But Avid has taken it one step further. You can right-click, show clip gain line. Once again, I'll zoom in. And this becomes a full envelope for the volume, pre-fader, pre-inserts. So you can do things like, I'm going to take this section, drag it up a little. I'm going to take this section, drag it down. Maybe I want to actually do something like this in this section. This goes up. So you get a full envelope, multi-point envelope that you can kind of adjust the volume for the entire audio clip. Now this is especially handy for vocals, and I plan on doing another video later around vocal editing in all of these DAWs. But this is something that I haven't seen done nearly as well in any other DAW, and it's extremely helpful when it comes to audio editing. All right, so that's it for Pro Tools. Let me move on. Okay, now we're here in Logic 10. I have a few audio files in this project, similar drum beat and a guitar part. You can see if I play it. Now, you can change the grid resolution in Logic by going up to here and selecting the division. You can also change your snap setting to be bar, beat, or smart. I like to leave it on smart. Now, compared to Pro Tools, there's no way to quickly duplicate an area of the project in Logic. You can copy and paste. So generally, you're going to have to just drag the samples around to lay it out. This is especially annoying when it comes to something like a hi-hat. So if I want this on every beat, I actually need to drag it out to every beat. One thing you can do is, if you have multiple selected, select all of them. And drag it over. Great. Now, just like previously, this is a pretty mechanical way to do something like a hi-hat. So what you can do is go to the event list, and within that, you can actually quantize the start of the event using these various quantized values. So for example, if I choose a quantized value, you'll see that the samples have shifted on the grid. All right. Now, the other thing we can do is change the snap point of the audio. Double click to open up the file editor. And down here where it says anchor is the snap point. So once again, very handy if you're trying to line up a reverse, crash, a swell. And the other nice thing compared to Pro Tools is if you move the file, the region, you can actually see the waveform as you move it. So it's much easier to move it around. Unfortunately, if you're laying samples down on the grid directly like this, there's no way to easily replace a sample to swap it out with another one. For example, if I wanted to now change all of these kick samples to another sample, there's no easy way to do that in Logic. If I unmute my guitar track, you can see that the marquee tool is a very handy way to edit audio. So for example, I can select something. If I just click on the top, it splits the region. You can also just double click with the marquee tool and it splits the region. If you want to trim the start of it, you can either select all of it and hit delete, or the other option is to use your playhead to set it to a particular spot, and then the command left and right square brackets will allow you to trim the start or end of the region. So I don't find it as handy as being able to use the edit cursor in Pro Tools because you have to set the playhead up here, but it is a way to do that. The other thing the marquee allows you to do is tap the transients. So I can select it here, and then the right and left arrows allow me to move through it to tap to the transients. For fades, you can grab the end and drag it over. You can also change the curve of the fade right there, which is nice. All right, so as before, say this guitar part was out of time. You can use flex in Logic to change the timing. Enable flex, choose your flex mode. It's guitar, so I'll choose polyphonic. And then you'll see the warp markers that you can add. So in the top half, you can add 1, delete it. In the bottom half, you can add 3 at once. So you can choose the middle one without affecting the sides. The other nice thing is once you've turned on flex, you can right click on the region and slice at transient markers if you want to do that. If I turn off flex, Logic's scissor tool also has a cool shortcut where if you hold down the option key and click, it slices the file on the beat. One of the other nice features that Pro Tools also happens to have is you can stretch the file directly on the timeline. Makes it easy to adjust a file at a different tempo to fit the current tempo. And then we also have the inspector, which allows you to do some interesting things. So if I have flex turned on for this region, I can quantize it to a particular groove or quantize value, and you can see it's quantized. It's very easy to do. Additionally, if I wanted to change the gain of the region, just drag up and down and you can see the waveform changing. So those are some of the editing features for audio within Logic. There's many more, but overall I feel it's not quite as good as some of the other DAWs. So let's move on.